Hello, everyone. Hello. Thank you guys for coming in. Listen, I want to have a real conversation. Like I don't ever have real conversations every day, but today I really want to dive into something that um, I think is very common and very prevalent, particularly for those of you that are in the process of starting your nonprofit organizations, right? And really understanding what is involved and what is required when you make the decision to start your nonprofit organization, right? A lot of people are under the impression that starting a nonprofit organization begins with the paperwork, the 1023 form, right? And the paperwork, which where most people talk about starting your nonprofit, they talk about the paperwork, they talk about the 1023 form, they talk about your EIN, they talk about, putting together a board. They talk about having your bylaws, but what they really don't cover is how does the organization operate? Right? Not just starting your nonprofit organization, but really understands how it operates. What are the functions within the nonprofit organization that causes it to be able to cover the expenses and to be able to do the work that really affects your community? Because without the operational component, the starting component doesn't mean anything, right? You'll start it and then you'll stall. You'll start it and then you'll become frustrated because you don't have the resources to continue to do the work, to grow the work, to be able to really have the impact that I know that you dream to have. All right. So today I want to talk about something that's really a deep dive. All right. We're going to have a very thorough conversation. And I want you guys to stick around. I want you guys to take notes. And I want you to really feel free to ask me questions if anything that I say doesn't really resonate or that you're not clear about. For those of you all who are new to me, I've been doing this work for 39 years. This year is going to be 40. And I really want to I want to present to you how to fix some of the areas within your organization that may not be working properly. All right. Not that you did anything wrong, not that you are a failure, but for many of you who have never worked in a nonprofit, for many of you that have never structured or set up a nonprofit, all of this is new to you, right? So, of course, you don't know. That is why you have me, your nonprofit expert, to really help you to be clear, to help you to be intentional, to help you to be strategic, and to help you to be successful. All right, here we go. I want to dive into why your nonprofit organization can't raise money. I think this is probably one of the biggest questions that I get from nonprofit leaders. They come to me all the time asking me the very same question. How do I get funding for my program? Jen, I don't have donors. How do I get funding? How do I get supporters? How do I get partners? How do I get donors? Right? They're wanting to know, how do I get funding for my program? And my answer is always the same, right? If any of you all have asked me the question, I answer it the same way every time. I say, you don't get funding for the program until the administrative entity is ready to receive it. I'm going to say that again. The question is, how do I get funding for my program? And my response is, you don't get funding for the program until the organization, the administrative entity, is ready to receive it. Not because funders don't love your mission, not because donors don't care, and not because the community doesn't need the work, but because money does not move toward passion. It moves towards structure. If you started a nonprofit believing that grants would be the biggest or your first source of money, no one corrects you until it's too late, right? Because you may have heard, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant, right? You know, there's grant funding. There's lots and lots and lots of grants out there, right? And so you start your nonprofit believing that grants is going to be your first and your biggest source of money. And no one tells you that that's not true until it's too late. What does too late mean? Too late means you started your program, you started paying for everything out of your pocket, you're 1 year, 2 year, 3 years in, you still can't get a grant. And then you find out that grants are not your only stream of revenue or your only source of capital. And that is exactly why we're here today. All right. Let me break it down for you simply. A nonprofit is two entities operating inside one organizational body. Okay. The nonprofit is two entities operating inside of one organizational body. You have the program entity, the work that you love doing. And then you have the administrative entity, the work you avoid doing. The program entity includes feeding people, teaching kids, providing counseling, running workshops, offering services, the giving out the backpacks, the after school program, the sports, program that you all are doing. That's the program entity, the work that you love doing. However, the administrative entity is has to be happening at the exact same time, right? When you start a nonprofit, you automatically start with these two entities in existence, all right? The program entity is the work that you love. The administrative entity is the work that you avoid. The administrative entity includes the board governance, the financial controls, the fundraising systems, the donor communications, the reporting, the compliance, the budgeting, the policies, the strategic planning. And most of you only build the program. However, funders, those capital issuing authorities, they fund the administrative entity. And here's the line that most people never hear: you cannot raise money from a serious donor or funder unless your administrative entity makes you look fundable, accountable, and sustainable. Almost every new nonprofit leader builds backwards, and it's not your fault. You were taught start your nonprofit, fill out the paperwork, start a program, begin to do the work that you're passionate about doing, apply for grants, and money will come. But in reality, the correct sequence is build the administrative entity, establish systems, diversify your funding streams, run the program at a sustainable level, and then pursue grants. You all will start your program, start paying for it out of your own pocket, and then hope that funding will come or catch up to what you've started paying for. And that's not the right order. Many of you confuse starting a nonprofit with setting up an organization. These are not the same thing. Let's talk about what it costs you financially, emotionally, and operationally when you skip administrative readiness. Okay? First, the financial cost. You lose donations because donors don't trust the setup. Funding opportunities because you can't report outcomes. Partnerships because there is no infrastructure. Corporate sponsors because you can't show metrics. Grant cycles because you weren't ready in time. Year after year, that adds up. Tens of thousands lost, sometimes hundreds of thousands, and in some cases, millions left on the table. That's just a financial cost. All right. Now let's talk about the operational cost. You experience burnout, confusion, mission drift. What is mission drift? Mission drift is you start with one mission, you don't get any support for that mission. So then you scramble and start another mission because you're thinking, well, maybe this mission will work, right? You're looking around, well, that organization is doing this. Let me shift to this mission. And then you have last minute scrambling, no consistent communication, and you have internal chaos. What does internal chaos look like? Jen, I have a board, but they're not working. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. Jen, I'm funding everything out of my own pocket. That's chaos. Then you have emotional cost, where you, as the founder, you feel embarrassed, you feel overwhelmed, you feel ashamed, you feel defeated, you feel isolated, you feel frustrated. And all of this is completely avoidable. All right. Let's talk about this grant myth, okay? This idea of start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. And you actually believe that grants are your biggest money source for the nonprofit. And honestly, that's false. That's false. Grants are competitive, they're restricted, they're compliance heavy, they're slow to receive, they're not guaranteed. They're not the first funding source. Now, again, a lot of people say, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. And so, in your mind, you may really understand to believe that grants are going to be my jump off point, right? Grants is what's going to get me started. Grants, which is the largest, it could be a large sum of money, but grants are not meant to sustain your organization. It's impossible. You may assume that, right? But let me tell you what the funder assumes. The grant funder, they're assuming that you already have other streams of revenue. They assume that you already have a reporting system. They assume that you already have governance. They assume that you already have a long term sustainability plan. It says it in the 1023 form. In the 1023 form, it says that you have 3 to 4 years of planning projections, financial projections. Grant funders do not want to be your first funding source, your only funding source, your rescue plan, your replacement for donors or the other paths of revenue. If grants are 80% of your strategy, you don't have a strategy. Here's where you slow down and just think about it. Okay. I want you to think about it. I want you to slow down and I want you to think about what I'm saying. All right. I want you to think about what I'm saying. Funders want you to have multiple streams of revenue. Funders want you to have all of the paths of money coming into your organization, right? Because it shows maturity and reduces risk. Did you hear what I said? The funders want you to have the multiple streams, the fundraising programs, the paths of cash flow. Why? Because it shows maturity and it reduces risk. Let me walk you through 8 to 15 streams of cash flow that funders expect you to know about, for you to have. You have the individual donors, okay? These are your reoccurring or one-time gifts. You have earned revenue, program fees, corporate sponsorships, grants, right? You have events, you have in kind, you have partnerships, collaborations. You have more than that, okay? And if you don't have those multiple streams or those cash flow systems, you appear unstable, period. Listen, in the 1023 form, the 1023 form says this. When you apply for your nonprofit status and you fill out the 1023 form, under the fundraising, it says your specific activities under Section 8 of the 1023 form. That's the paperwork that you file to start or to begin or to register your nonprofit. It says, do you or will you undertake fundraising? If yes, check all the fundraising programs you will do. Did you hear what the word said? All. Check all. It doesn't say check one, it says check all. That means you can have all. You can have all of the fundraising programs needed to generate the revenue for your organization. Look it up. It says it on the paperwork. It says it when you are applying to be recognized as a not-for-profit or a 1023 form, a 1023 organization, right? What is a 501c3? What is a 501c3? According to the application, the 1023 form, a 501c3 is a internal revenue code. So you are applying application for recognition of exemption under section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code. What does that mean? That means you are applying to be able to generate the revenue needed for your organization to operate. What does that mean? That means your organization is structured and set up to generate the revenue needed that is tax exempt to achieve your mission work to benefit your program. So those of you that say, Jen, I'm a nonprofit, we don't have any funding. Jen, I'm a nonprofit, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, I'm a nonprofit, I have to do everything myself. Jen, I'm a nonprofit, I don't know how to find funders. I don't know how to find donors. That's not how you're structured. Let me give you a real world example of why your programs are failing. One, you don't know how you're supposed to be set up. Two, you start feeding families before you have a tracking system, a donor management system, a reporting system, a budget. You hear me say? You start feeding families, you start, giving out backpacks, you start spending money on this program. And you have no tracking system, no donor management system, no reporting, no budget, right? No way to sustain it. And a donor says, that's nice. But where's the oversight? Where's the accountability financially? Like, how will I know where my money goes? Let me give you another example. You begin mentoring youth, but you have no background checks, no waivers, no safety protocols. And the funder says, that's too much liability. You might open a program, but you, the executive director, the founder, you're doing everything. You have no board involvement. You have no leadership plan. And the funder says, well, what happens if the founder gets sick? Programs fail, not because the passion is weak, but because the administrative entity was never built when you started it. Now let's talk honestly about implementation. You can absolutely build this thing by yourself, right? Many of you have done it. There's a study that says 87 out of 100 of you have done it. You did it yourself. You filed the paperwork by yourself. You picked your board without knowing role and responsibility. You did all of those things, right? But here's the truth. Most of you, most founders do not want to write policies. You don't want to build budgets. You don't want to implement donor systems. You don't want to develop governance. You don't want to create reporting tools. You don't want to manage compliance. And most founders do not have what? The time, the training, the experience, the confidence, the clarity, or the support. And this is exactly why people get stuck for years. For years, people are stuck for that very reason. Stuck for years. Listen, I bring over 39 years of experience. I have had the pleasure in my career in the nonprofit space to work with thousands of organizations, both nationally and internationally. As a professional fundraiser, I've raised millions of dollars for organizations. I've built systems that last. I've got national and international organization experience. I'm not teaching theory. I'm not talking about theory. I build real systems within your administrative entity that is supposed to be there. Everybody knows it's supposed to be there, right? The IRS knows it's supposed to be there. The IRS says, what are all of the revenue generating programs you are going to do? The thing is that most of you don't know what they are. And so they're not structured, they're not built, they're not present in your organization right now. If you are tired of struggling, if you're tired of guessing, if you're tired of Googling, if you're tired of applying for grants too early, if you're tired of writing the grant and getting denied the grant, if you are tired of wasting money and wasting time, if you are tired of feeling frustrated or embarrassed, if you are overall exhausted of working harder and not moving the needle, if you are tired of being confused and really not understanding how to get out of that dark place, if you have a lot of passion to help, but you're not getting the support that you need to be able to help, if you know that fundraising exists, but you don't have the experience to do it, you don't know how to do it, you don't know where to begin, then it's time to stop doing this alone. I know what many of you are thinking. I know what many of you are thinking. You may be thinking, well, what if it doesn't work? What if it doesn't work? It will work because we're not guessing. We're building proven systems that thousands of organizations use. Every organization is built the same. Those organizations that are raising funds, those organizations that have staff, that have building, that have multiple programs, they have the system I'm talking about you all having, right? It's a system. Every organization operates under the same system. You just don't have the system. So your question of what if it doesn't work? It will work. It's being done in your community. We're not guessing. We're building a system. You have predictable expenses. You need that predictable system, right? You may be thinking, what if I don't have time? You don't need time. My team does all the heavy lifting. My team does all the work. You don't need time. My team is going to take it over and do it for you. You may be thinking, well, what if I can't afford it? You cannot afford the financial loss of continuing unstructured. Did you hear what I said? You cannot afford the financial loss of continuing unstructured, right? You're paying for everything out of your pocket. You don't have any donors, you don't have any supporters, you don't have any contributors, your board's not able to help you fundraise. That's not a money issue. That's a structure issue. If you can't afford to put your structure in place, then that financial loss that you right now are experiencing, loss of grant opportunities, loss of donor engagement and trust, that's what happens when you continue to unstructure. All right. You may be thinking, well, what if I make another mistake? What if I make another mistake? This is exactly why you need an expert guiding you. You were making mistakes doing it on your own. I'm an expert. I know how to do it, right? There are no mistakes. When you were doing it by yourself, you didn't know what you didn't know. So, of course, you made mistakes. But this is exactly why you need an expert guiding you. You may be thinking, well, can I do this later? Sure. Every year you wait, you lose money, you lose donors, you lose grants, you lose partnerships, you lose momentum. Waiting costs you far more than investing now. All right? Listen, if everything in this video has clarified why fundraising has been difficult, if you now understand the difference between program and administrative readiness, and if you're finally ready to stop doing this alone, then it's time to have a conversation. All right? You can build the administrative entity yourself over years, right? Years. Or you can let me and my team build it quickly, correctly, and strategically. Because the organization has to raise funds. That part is non-negotiable. That part is non-negotiable. Because if you don't have the revenue or the resources, the money, then you can't do that program. You can't achieve your passion. You can't accomplish your mission without the resources, without the money. And money is not your problem. Money's a fruit. Why is there no money? Jen, I don't have a plan to raise it. Jen, I don't know how to raise it. Jen, my organization doesn't have the systems to raise it. The only question is this: do you want to keep doing it the hard way, or do you want support from someone who has done this successfully for nearly 4 decades? It's up to you. Okay, it's up to you. If you're ready, let's have a conversation. Let's have a conversation. All right. I want you to reach out to me. I'm going to give you a special link. I'm going to give you a special link for us to have this conversation. If you decide, Jen, I'm going to keep doing it by yourself, then I'm going to say good luck. And I'm going to say that's your choice. But I'm offering you a solution. I'm offering you a path to where my team and I will do it for you. We will work with you. We will show you. We will guide you, but we will do the work so that you can now focus on doing the things that you enjoy within the organization, which is your program, which is, you know, doing the things that you are passionate about. And let us build a system for you. All right. Let us build a system for you. Thank you all for listening in. Thank you all so very much. My name is Jennifer. I am your nonprofit expert, here to help you not just start your nonprofit organization, but how to structure it for sustainability so that your mission has the resources, the money that it needs to benefit your community. All right. I'll see you guys next time.